War Diary, Captain Mitchell, Washington, D.C. War has the funny habit of killing good soldiers and promoting bad ones. I certainly wouldn't call myself a good soldier. If I was, I'd have died on the beaches in Staten Island. Instead, I was given command of Bravo Rifle Company of the 2nd Battalion, 1st Regiment, 109th Mechanized Infantry for the defense of Jersey. The boys in my platoons had no combat experience and were soiling their pants after the first rounds of bombardment. Once the Germans had enough of blowing us up, the amphibious tanks crossed the river and I ran again. Next I was in Baltimore with the remnants of the 109th, trying to mount a defense. We knocked out one of their Leopard tanks with some mines we had laid, but that's about all we achieved before the bombs fell. A few days later, I was on the run again while we were trying to organize a retreat to the capital. Washington itself was, of course, not defensible, but the politicals gave order of no step back. Retreat would be treated as desertion. I had maybe a platoon left who could fight. We set up a line in a field outside the city limits, nothing more than a few foxholes. Our CA-9 half-trucks had broken down on the retreat or run out of fuel. Heard we are the richest country in the world in oil. Doesn't account for jack if we can't get it to the front. We used our AAA for direct fire against their tanks, but nothing stops those things. When they came rolling up the road, we may as well not have been there. They're still fighting in the city. I can hear it, but I'm done. I'm tired. There's nowhere to go, we can't hold them back, and retreat is punished by summary execution. I'm going to sneak out tonight, see if I can find a farm I can steal some clothes. I don't think Browder and his thugs can last much longer, not with the East Coast falling. They're handing out leaflets now how the glorious USAS Army is pushing the invaders into the sea. Clear sign that we've lost, if you ask me. I'm out of this war. Never said I was a good soldier. All the good ones are dead. With a large number of American troops trapped in the Central American theater, it is not a bad idea to try and maybe even sandwich them in between. Some suggestions were made, and we will be sending the regular Marine infantry into the northern parts, in the territory that is even less operable by tanks, and they will try to cut off in Guatemala and see if we can cut off both parts of the American troops here, and then work with the with the Allied troops in destroying this completely destroying the Southern Army. Now, the Marines themselves will not be able to do that all at once. So once they have landed, we'll be sending some mountain divisions to reinforce them, and for that we'll get probably eight mountain divisions positioned in Havana, and then they'll be coming in as reinforcements in the north to cut off, whereas the tanks can probably hold the southern parts, and especially the southern jungle areas for against enemy action, and allow us to do the sort of hammer and anvil thing here. In the rest of the front lines, we are reasonably stable. The mountaineers are making their way through the Appalachians, and we are currently in the process of reorienting Guderian's tanks towards the north for a push towards Cleveland. He should be able to pass through the lowlands without too much trouble, and to cut off and to push then forwards further into Chicago, and hopefully take the rest of the American government. The 4th Schlachtgeschwader around the two carriers Otto Lilienthal and Potsdam is going to run naval invasion support in the Caribbean and just security against any possibility of American shipping sailing forth. But so far we haven't really seen anything. In fact, given the fact that the Americans have no longer have any available transports to them, we'll get all the submarines to return and repair. They have been at sea for a very long time, so we'll get them all. We'll get them all back in port for repair operations, and that is that. All right. Once Guderian is ready in the north, we'll be continuing. But the mountain divisions are making their way up the lines here, and are just tasked with clearing out the Appalachian positions. So let's continue with that. And once they have taken these, the regular infantry can take over. So we can already reduce the length of the front line here. The Americans are heavily contesting us now in the East Coast air zone, so that's where the majority of their fighter craft is in the air. We have we have on our side mostly heavy fighters, and what we do have, I think, we have Allied fighters up in the air as well. So with that, the American air losses that are not replaceable are very significant. And we will be shooting down what we can. Meanwhile, we'll give some infantry support from the south to the mountain divisions, which are making their way through the terrain and are pushing the exhausted American divisions out of there. Just a brief look, how come that our mountain divisions are so effective? Well, it's intelligence, air support, 25% on experience, and we've planned this out relatively well. And with that, with these bonuses stacking, the Americans have relatively little chance of holding this back. So we'll be carefully pushing through the mountain regions, potentially cutting off parts of the enemy front lines. So let's see if we can just use the momentum to keep going here. And then we've got another division south here. And then we will try to circle around. We do have to keep an eye on supply consumption because we are a little stretched here. Supply out of Atlanta is not going to last all through the mountains, so we'll have to cut through relatively quickly, I believe. And we have some tanks ready for fire support once the mountain divisions have made their way up into a position to take on the 197th, which is resting in this region. So let's keep the momentum going, and maybe we can make a bigger move here. It'll all depend on the amount of supply. Some Russian tanks and Ukrainian tanks, combined Russian-Ukrainian armored forces are making their way through. We'll see if we can push around the enemy divisions here and make our way through. We have some Canadian shipping still in the area, so let's take a brief look and ensure that we're docked in New York City, but despite the fact that we are having scout aircraft all over, the Canadians so far have managed to escape our grasp and to evade any kind of attempted sortie from friendly ships. We might have to devote a few ships into scouting operations here, but in the meantime, the experienced Gebirgsdivision are pushing through the Appalachian Mountains towards linking up again with Weber's tanks and then encircling and destroying some more of the American troops. Meanwhile, Guderian's forces are trickling in. We give them time to plan out the next operation from there, and obviously we'll have to wait for the naval divisions to be in place for the invasions. All right. A few more tank divisions making their way into this potential pocket. We've got the 76th and the 199th, and at this point the Americans are now launching counterattacks. At this point the Mountaineers are running relatively low on supplies, so we'll probably get Weber's tanks to begin operations. Giscas has been captured, so we'll push into the mountains against the enemy tank forces. This is not an ideal approach, but we should be able to push through that. Regardless, we do have to rescue Hermann Giscas, so we will send We can send Polyakova. I think she will be capable of breaking him out from there. All right, back to the action, where we've got some troops here defending, but we'll leave probably one division behind until the infantry is caught up. Infantry is moving in, so I think the mountaineers can simply just keep going. All right, let's see if we can roll the momentum. And meanwhile, Weber's tanks have already pushed out the Americans from their mountain positions, which are favorable in order to defend themselves. But last-minute reinforcements from the north are not going to save this pocket, and we have the, which one is it? We've got the 5th Panzer pushing north into the mountainous area together with the Alpenkorps. Infantry is coming up to assist, and now we have the encirclement as desired, which means all available troops can now move in to destroy the encircled forces here, and make sure that we'll get some tanks from the north in as well. That's 2 American tank divisions, as well as 3 mechanized, a marine division, and a regular infantry. So these are losses that the Americans cannot replace, and the mountain range is not as much of a safety net as the Americans probably thought. So while we're reducing positions here, and Guderian's troops have reached their positions and currently are drafting the plan. We are going to. We're not in a rush. We can save that. We're just going to clean out the remaining positions here, and then these troops will be surrendering or never coming back out of these mountains. And I think with that momentum, the American losses should mount to the point that they are no longer willing to fight. How high is their stability still? Combat casualties are starting to pile in, but at the same time, the dismay of raided convoys and bad news no longer applies, simply because they have no more convoys. And with that, the last tank division has been taken out. And these losses are catastrophic for the Americans. So if we're looking at some of these losses, it's the tanks, the expensive equipment, the tanks, the half trucks, and similar that the Americans simply cannot replace in time. Now we have to change. We have to change General Fuchs's front line. There we go. We'll get the mountaineers to concentrate once more, and then we'll clear out the rest of the northern position. Given that the USIS Air Force has mostly abandoned attempts at defending the East Coast and is now concentrating on the Central American theater, we are diverting the heavy fighter wings from Miami towards Havana, and they will be running air support in the south and dealing with not just the enemy fighters, but most of the American support is in the theater and giving air support here. So we will start challenging these. The scout planes of the Aufklärungsgeschwader are going to start covering the more inland regions, and the heavy America bombers of the strategic wings that are currently operating out of Bermuda are moving inland towards the Virginia Air Base and will start bombing the enemy capital. So with that, I think with these additional air raids, hopefully we will be seeing some more results when it comes to American will to fight. And it looks like our lines are a little overstretched in the north. It would just be amazing if the Allied troops could actually get it to themselves to get out of Boston Harbor. But right now they're mostly piled up in an inefficient heap. So we've got the 9th Army on balanced cohesion, but we are missing to defend some areas in the north here. So we might actually manually send a division over just to make sure that that we don't get any further enemy incursions. The infantry, once dug in, should be able to hold on against American-Canadian counterattacks. And we are back. Yeah, we're waiting for the mountain divisions to make their way into the new staging point for the next operation, pushing north towards Charleston, and then we're almost at Pittsburgh. But I think we can also, yeah, we'll just have to wait a little bit for Guderian's tanks to be fully planned, and Halder is still waiting for some Marine divisions to get into place to launch the invasion. Meanwhile, the economic improvements in Germany are continuing. We should have some options now. Yeah, we can run some economic options to build up infrastructure, factories, and other things inside the empire, and we can continue with that simply because domestic policy is of importance. We've got the Sekretariat. No, we don't really need that, but we'll take it. Sekretariat für Preisüberwachung, the Department of Price Monitoring, to ensure that there are no issues with price gouging in times of war. We do have to keep an eye on our war support because the various operations are causing discontent at home as usual. But well, we can launch some measures once the political opportune time is there. The arrival of Finnish troops has led to more Finnish troops has led to a renewed mobility against the exhausted American divisions in Central America. So I don't think we'll be waiting for the remaining for the remaining divisions. It's three divisions that we're still waiting for. But instead, we will immediately launch the naval invasions on both positions, and we will be having. We are already having significant fighter support. However, the Americans are still very much active in the theater, and I think we've got some tactical bombers that we can bring in from Kingston Air Base as well. So I think it's a good moment and we've got some additional fighter wings up in the north that we don't need there, that we can potentially bring over to Kingston as well, and see if we can overwhelm them. So far, the air war is raging in Central America. That's where the Americans are concentrating their efforts, and given the extreme range, it is not going to be particularly effective. But we are now sending the Marines to land behind the American lines in both positions in Limon and in the north, and we will try to land and get through before the Finns actually are pushing the exhausted Americans out of the area, such that we can still cut off the enemy troops. That has potentially the slightly negative effect that the exhausted American troops will be ending up at the landing positions, but we will see. We will see how the operation ends up. So far, the southern part is moving first. The Marine Sturmpanzer divisions are moving inwards towards San Jose in Costa Rica, and we will see if we can. I will see that we at least destroy the southern part of the American army here, and then we'll see if the rest of the troops can manage to land in the north, still behind enemy positions, depending on how things go there. German Marines have taken the port of Limon, and that means the retreating American troops that were trying to establish a new defensive line in the south are going to suddenly find themselves being cut off. The northern part, 6th, 14th and 15th, are immediately going to assault San Jose, and will send divisions north to establish a perimeter along the river line, and the rest of them will move south to clear out enemy positions, and to cut off the surprise defenders in San Jose. Despite the fact that the air situation is still contested, the Marine Sturmpanzer divisions are pushing through the surprised American defenders with speed. We have a floating harbor in place just in case and we'll send one division to assist in San Jose, just in case we need additional supplies. But taking the port of Limon has completely surprised the Americans, and has been a complete success in terms of cutting them off. We'll see if we can manage to cut off the troops in the north as well. The second landing in the north has been successful too. We've got the Marines landing in San Pedro Sula, and we will now send the mountain divisions, the Gebirgskommando, and they will be getting their own front line here. So we'll be sending these troops in with the task of pushing through and cutting off the American retreat in the north. And with that, hopefully, we will have the whole American Southern Army destroyed, and then the path through Mexico is relatively clear for Allied troops to take. As usual, it comes down to the German divisions to make all of this happen. We'll just have to clear out the front lines here a little bit. We'll probably manage them by hand for now. Okay, we've got we're pushing north towards the river. We've taken the port. We've liberated San Jose, and Costa Rica is once again free. And I think the bridges across the river have actually been abandoned, while the Americans are being pushed out of Leon in the north. Just keeping a quick eye that we're holding our positions here. I think we are. Let's see if we can get if the Marines can make this push by themselves with some fire support. Yes, I think despite the fact that the Americans are setting up defensive positions in the mountains north, we should be able to push through them, and we'll give some fire support here. Yeah, the Marine divisions should be able to do this, and with that, hopefully we'll encircle them in the north as well. In the southern position, we are pushing the Americans into a cauldron, and we are establishing these positions here. So the north has already been taken. So I think all of these, the Americans at this point are without hope, unless they can manage to retreat from the port of Managua. But I think the defense there has been in vain, and the Marine Sturmpanzer divisions are pushing in against any kind of last resort attempts, and then it's just down to Managua as their last stand eventually in the port. So we've got 4 divisions in the south making their way through the jungle, and in the north the infantry is still fighting a pitched battle. I think they have reinforced, so we'll stop this for now. We can potentially, that some troops are managing to escape north, unfortunately, here, but we'll see if we can get the so the 8th and the 9th are somewhat exhausted, but we'll see if we can get the 952nd to lead the attack and get the other 2 in support, and see if we can manage to push through that way against the slightly less well-defended region in the mountains here. Meanwhile, the American troops are falling. They have been pushed out of Managua. There's no retreat, and with that, the last American defenders have fallen, and we have destroyed the southern half of the American holdings here. And with that, we can now unify the front lines here and get all the Marines up. And I think the push through from the Marine divisions here into the mountains is too ambitious. We are waiting for the mountain divisions to ship in. We'll see where they are. They should be there momentarily, and the mountaineers are much more suited towards this. So we'll unify the front lines. We'll bring the tanks up, and then we will see what encirclements we can facilitate in the north, and if we can cut off some more of the enemy troops there. Meanwhile, in the north, in the American mainland, most of the Appalachian region has been liberated or has been cleansed by the Gebirgskommando. And with that, we have secured the southern flank, and we can get Guderian's tanks to start moving towards Pittsburgh. Let's have a quick look what the supply situation is in the region. Yeah, Pittsburgh's the next supply hub, so I think going from the Philadelphia base should be sufficient to last them until that. So let's get the tanks moving. We'll probably begin in the south here and then move straight towards Pittsburgh, and we get 2 more tank divisions in the north to clear along the lines, and we've got 4 more tank divisions that do need to cross the river against American defenders, but I think we can take the bridges at this point with air support without too much trouble, and push forward, and from there on out make our way through. Let's have a quick look at the air zones. We are still we've got sufficient bombers in the region to blow away any kind of opposition. So I think actually at this point we can probably give Guderian his marching orders and get him towards Chicago. The Americans are still holding a few forces here. I don't want to overstretch him, but I think we've got sufficient troops in the region to make this happen. So let's go with this for now. Have the Mountaineers arrived? Not quite yet. Mountain divisions are on the move. Okay, something else is happening. We haven't looked at South America, but Argentina has been making major inroads in the war against Brazil. And with the fall of Rio, the Argentinians probably have this in the bag. So with that, it is the Montevideo Treaty on the retreat and the Buenos Aires-Lima axis taking over mostly complete control on South America, which we are fine with. There's another attempted naval landing, and this time by brave Bulgarian troops in Canada. But so far, the Allied naval landing attempts have not led to any successes. We can support the mountain divisions here a little with some of Weber's tanks, and the Gebirgsjäger are going through the north. We will cut off one more of the American tank divisions. These are the most dangerous potential. These have the most dangerous potential of any kind of counterattacks. But so far, hunting these down is a primary objective, but so far they have been mostly ineffective. We've got an improved Landwasserschlepper that we can get into production. So let's make that happen. The LWS 2. And we'll convert whatever we have into that. Everything else, I think, is on. And apparently we're short on steel. That is surprising, but we can always grab some from France without too much trouble. And we can get some more rubber deliveries from German East Asia. And with that, the situation is cleared. Guderian's tanks on the move towards Pittsburgh, using the momentum to push back the American defenders, and the motorized infantry following up. We have managed to encircle an American division there north. Again, a tank division up in the north, potentially dangerous, but I think Guderian's tanks have this in the bag. They are moving at this point rapidly enough that we can probably just push through towards Buffalo and cut off the whole northern flank from supply, because I don't think they will be having any supply once Buffalo falls, and that should put a serious dent in their attempts of holding any positions there. There are a fair amount of American troops concentrated in the north, but they will not get very far. Armored Spearhead will pin them south of Pittsburgh while we're clearing out the west bank of the river. And with that, Pittsburgh's already fallen. Enemy divisions encircled, and the mobile infantry is following in fast. And with that, I think we have pretty much Cleveland at the horizon. The American troops at this point are no longer even in an organized retreat. Meanwhile, in the south, we have the mountain divisions, which are somewhat organized now. So we'll make a break in the north against armored divisions in the mountains, and we will be counterattacking in the south as well to prevent any kind of further attempts at breaking out. We do have some support from the Marine Sturmpanzer divisions, which can lend their rapid firing guns towards these attempts. It looks like the northern attempt is being defended. It is a very, very narrow area in which we can fight, but we now have control over the air pretty much completely, and that also means we can send the airports are not particularly great in the region. We'll probably send 2 here and 3 there. Yep, that's about as much as we can get. But getting the tactical bombers closer to this to the theater, getting them to be more efficient. We will see if we can facilitate the breakthrough towards the Pacific. Mountain troops are still fighting determined enemy resistance in the north here, but at the same time we're making a breakthrough in the south, so I think we can manage to encircle most of the Central American army at this point. Meanwhile, Guderian's tanks have broken through north towards Buffalo, obviously completely outrun the supply lines, but holding Buffalo is not the target. We will see if we can create a cauldron here while defending against American counterattacks, and link up with the main defensive line in the north, encircle a part of the enemy troops dispositions here, and we'll send some mechanized infantry north to secure the line. Guderian's army is now a little bit overstretched, and we've again got a few encircled American divisions here. And the USAS have decrypted our cipher. Well, we have done the same, so we will balance that by... we get passive bonuses from this, but we'll balance that by using that against them as well. So both of us now know of each other's plans. And we've got the relatively exhausted 8th Panzer, which has done a very rapid move towards Buffalo and now swings east. We'll get some support from the infantry against the out-of-supply Gettysburg division. So big tank battles going on here by Guderian's tanks against, and yeah, they are suffering somewhat from the supply situation against the American defenders. The Gettysburg division, the tanks should not have too much trouble breaking through them, and we've got the infantry support here as well. We will launch a counterattack into Rochester in the north, while the rest of the divisions is falling in. We do need to clear out the supply positions because we have very much overstretched now. Even Pittsburgh isn't connected yet, which is why the tanks are running on pretty much on empty. They're low on fuel, they're low on ammunition, but we have an opportunity here to encircle a large part of the northern force, so we will be using that, and I think the 6th Panzer is going to stop that counterattack at this point. We will leave the exhausted 8th Panzer here to dig in and defend, while the battle here is still raging against now 2 enemy tank divisions. So definitely a fair amount. Do we have? This is the New England air zone. We might need some more. We might need some more bomber capacity here. Let's focus on this. Yeah, let's focus the air. Refocus the Luftwaffe to give some more air support to this attack here. Meanwhile, in the south, have we broken through? Yes, we have. We have managed to break through towards the port. We haven't quite managed to encircle all of the as many of the enemy divisions as we wanted to, but the mountain divisions can now begin clearing out the area here with support from the marine tanks, and as long as it's not in the actual mountains, I think the Marines are going to be relatively successful as well. Back in the north, where Guderian is again pushing his tanks as hard as he possibly can. We have managed to close. The encirclement, but the tanks are on their last legs at this point. So, however, now we can begin clearing the clearing out the encircled divisions here with the assistance of the mechanized infantry of the Panzergrenadier, and give Guderian's tank divisions a much-needed rest. Unfortunately, Americans have managed to break out again, so we are immediately counter-attacking here with all available infantry to close the gap. American counterattacks to break out their encircled Allied troops are rapid and heavy, but I think with the 1st Panzer holding the line here, we have that closed and plugged, and we are now overrunning the enemy troops. And that was a hard ride for Guderian, hard on material and men, but a big success in terms of captured and destroyed enemy troops, and cutting off the complete northern flank. But now we have to wait. Now we have to clear out the rear and wait for the lines of communication to be established before we make any further movements here. However, these additional attacks have cost the Americans dearly. They have now taken 3.5 million losses against 27,000 German troops lost, which is disproportionate to say the least. And we have now encircled the last remaining American troops in the south here. So let's clear out this large encirclement. That is a fair amount. This is a full field army that is trapped here and coming under immediate attack from both the Marine light tanks, which really have carried the day in many ways, and we'll send the northern group south into the port. We'll see if the Americans can manage to retreat some of their forces out, but we've got reinforcements coming in from all sides, and with that I don't think they can, and that has been another massive loss for the Americans in Central America. 300,000 men have surrendered, and that should have broken the back of the Central American operation and probably the whole war, because at this point I think the amount of casualties that the Americans have taken should be taking its toll. Yes, it is definitely starting to take its toll. The propaganda is effective, and the support for the conduct of the war is ever further decreasing. Despite the very minor losses, and surprisingly minor losses for the German Empire in the American war, the overall support for the conduct of the war is getting reduced. So we shall once again send out movie productions and ensure the understanding of the heroic conduct of our forces in this theater. Pittsburgh is very much overloaded as a supply hub, and we'll have to make sure that we are not supplying Allied troops here less than necessary, and reserve the supply for Guderian's army. Buffalo is not connected because we are not actually because there's no direct railway line. So we'll probably quickly construct a Pittsburgh-Buffalo connection. There we go. Just to connect the Buffalo supply hub to the railway system and ensure that we can get through there. Meanwhile, the mountain divisions can shorten the front lines here somewhat, destroy some encircled American troops, and clear out some of the last positions here in Central America. We are now we have liberated. The Kingdom of Finland has taken control mostly of the region, but I mean, who can blame them given how tropical it is here? But yeah, there's not much left. There's not much left for the Americans. We'll just wait for the troops to make their way towards the front line, and we can probably focus the Gebirgsjäger onto the mountainous passes in the area here, and instead get the tanks to start swinging north and liberate and begin pushing into Mexico, which has been a long way coming. Now the Mexicans are probably not particularly interested in being liberated. Feeble American counterattacks being defeated along the lines here. Mexicans are probably not particularly interested in being liberated. However, that is not up to them, and we have freed up, with this action and shortening of the front line, we have actually freed up Weber's tank divisions. So I think now that what we'll probably do is get Guderian, once the supply has been established in Buffalo, get Guderian to swing north and probably take Ottawa, and we'll get Weber to we give Weber an offensive line to take over the Chicago operations. So Guderian is going to swing north, and we'll get his panzers to take Ottawa and push back the Canadians from the border. And meanwhile, we'll get Weber's tanks to push towards Chicago. From liberated Mexico, a new agent has, or parts of Mexico, very early parts of Mexico, a new agent has joined us, Valentina Zapata. And she can be immediately put to good use to start building intelligence network in Mexico City. And we will see... We'll see what we can do on the ground in terms of the overall situation. But just knowing what's going on is obviously important. Now we are moving Weber's divisions into position for the operation towards Chicago for the final push, and Guderian's tanks are moving towards the northern part. However, we do have to wait for the lines here to be connected. And I think we will also need to improve the railway lines going forward. So we've got the industry to make this happen. We'll improve the railway lines and the overall situation for 2 tank armies to operate in the theater. Meanwhile, Fuchs's Gebirgskommando has arrived in place, and we can begin operations to liberate Guatemala completely. We'll push first in the north, and I think we should have sufficient. Yeah, the Americans are still contesting the area, but their losses are catastrophic in the air, and I think with that we do have a few tactical bombers in the air zone, and obviously with air support from the Luftwaffe. The experienced mountain divisions should not have much trouble making their way through and taking Guatemala. And we've got the Marines in the north the Marines moving to the north as well, and they will push through the jungle to try and liberate Yucatan, while we are waiting for. The tank armies in the northern continent to consolidate themselves. Central America has capitulated, and with total surrender to the Kingdom of Finland. The Finnish forces, along with a number of independent Central American authoritarian Democrat supporters, have forced Farabundo Rodriguez and his government into exile. So Finland is in control of Central America. And we are now busy. We have isolated Guatemala, so we can push into the city here, while the mountain troops are securing the northern flank. We'll leave 1 division behind, and there we go. And consolidate the line while we are destroying the encircled troops here. Meanwhile, in the north, the tanks have arrived, so we'll get them to cut off Yucatan, and then secure a port for supply. in the continent, supply situation in the north is still sort of questionable. Guderian's fifth Panzer is still very much out of supply in the region, but that's because the Pittsburgh supply hub and because Buffalo hasn't been connected yet. So we have to wait for the Buffalo connection to be secured before we can push north. Meanwhile, Weber's troops are also still struggling with supply in Pittsburgh, so we'll wait until everything has caught up before we make the next move. Heavy fighting in the jungles between the light tanks of the Marine Sturmpanzer Division and the American 356th Warhawk divisions, but the Americans, as usual, have been pushed back, mostly due to their inexperience, and the Marines are carrying the day. So with that, we will be establishing superiority in this region as well. We have some more need for the mountain divisions to push if we are pushing further into Mexico and reach Mexico City. But overall, the goal is to get the Americans to capitulate, and they are still doggedly holding on. We will see if Weber's final run towards Chicago is going to change that. In parts, the problems we have in with the local infrastructure are also due to German bombing that has been pounding the American rear for quite a while. So now that we actually have taken the territories, we do have to repair a lot of the damage that the strategic bombing campaign has been causing. Right now, the America bomber groups are focusing their campaign onto the Great Plains region, in order to decimate the will of the American people. And we do actually have another Fernkampfgeschwader that can join this effort, a new group. They can join the strategic bombing campaign here. And given that we're not having any kind of fight going on at the moment, we can probably also use the medium bombers to begin obliterating Ottawa. So let's see what the Canadians are able to put up against a concentrated air campaign of the strategic destruction in the north. While the situation in terms of supplies is still relatively desperate for some of the tank divisions in the north, we have an opportunity here of cutting off maybe two of the American tank divisions. So Guderian's somewhat exhausted forces may be capable of breaking through American lines here. And we do have some supplied reinforcements with the 1st and the 11th. So we'll see if they can manage to break through. And if we can get the supplied 7th or somewhat supplied 7th and 8th to break through as well, with support from the 5th Panzer all the way towards the north, and with support from the Luftwaffe, we should be able to. Yes, we have managed to breach the exhausted American defenders, or the surprised American defenders, and that should enable us to relatively quickly capture the coast of the lakes in the north, which then allows us to assault and destroy the American troops that are trapped there, and it leaves the road relatively open towards the north. So we can potentially push a bit further and see if we can still manage to link up with friendly forces, despite the overall not very great fuel situation. Tanks have overrun the Americans, and we are now beginning the final operations in the north, while we have the momentum to clear out American troops here. And I think we'll take one tank division just to drive around the north and see if we can cut off the Americans there. We can already. Can we not go direct? Oh, that's actually a lake. Yeah. Why we can't. All right, so that should entrap with a swift move and destroy two more of the Americans' modern tank divisions in the area. There we go. We've isolated a small group. We have some support from We have some support from Irish heavy artillery, and we have the Americans on the run. The question is, can we catch them before they make their way into Canada? That is and escape. So that's the big question here. But I think the troops are on the move. The 7th Panzer is making a rush south of Montreal to cut off the Americans, and at the same time the 5th, 8th and 1st are overrunning the retreating Americans rapidly. And I think with that we have actually cleared out pretty much already achieved Guderian's objectives, which means that Weber now should have free reign to push forward, and I think we will at this point give the go ahead. Now, before we do that, Guderian's troops, definitely deserve their medals, given the efforts and the heroic fight towards to cut off the Americans. We'll be awarding some Knight's Crosses here, and also the 9th Panzer can still get the Knight's Cross with oak leaves. Okay, that's that done, and that means that means we are at the almost at the Canadian border here, having cut off most of the remaining American troops in the theater. Tanks can move in. Americans are counterattacking from across the Canadian territory, but no chance to save their beleaguered brethren. And let's have a quick look at the Yucatan situation, where we're holding the line. There is an encircled American division here that we can actually clear out, and we've got the Marines driving through the jungle on their light tanks, and then making their way into Mexico. Although that is at this point a secondary theater, I think we can begin. We have some trouble with Canadian submarines that we keep chasing away, but I have actually moved the first Schlachtgeschwader to Greenland in order to cut off any kind of Canadian sortie out into the Atlantic if possible. But these submarines are being a little irritating, but the escorts are on top of that. Well, anyway, final push it is. We are going to launch a final operation towards Chicago, and hopefully that will get the Americans to finally capitulate now that we have the supply somewhat organized. Yeah, starts looking better. So the Pittsburgh position is organized. The railways are still going to be improved. We'll push north towards Cleveland, take the supply position in Cleveland, deal with the cut-off American troops, and then we'll move further. So probably the best approach is going to be for the 2nd and 6th, just to push straight into Cleveland, and we have 4 more tank divisions in the north waiting to join in. We'll get the mechanized infantry to follow along. Just wanted to make sure that the tanks are leading the charge here, and they are trying to resupply from the south with two American tank divisions in the theater. So let's keep them busy while Weber's 6th and 2nd are making their way into Cleveland. The Schützen are going to defend and hold the line here, and then once that's active, we can actually already start the rest of the armored divisions to clear the railway lines towards Cleveland, destroy the encircled American troops, who are as usual surprised by the rapid advance of German tank divisions. But Cleveland has fallen. We'll secure supply there, and with that, and we're actually even moving on the southern front under heavy Luftwaffe bombardment. That we'll use the momentum and keep pushing back these American armored divisions that have no time to reorganize, and we'll move along the lines of supply towards Chicago. At this point, taking the American capital is the main goal of the operation, and we've got additional tanks coming in additional tanks coming in to secure the southern flank of this push, all the way towards Chicago, and we can also cut off the north and Detroit if necessary. But we have the mechanized infantry to potentially clear out remaining positions southwards. So let's make that happen as well, and we'll see if we can. As we go, we'll see if we can manage to encircle. If we can manage to encircle some of the escaping Americans here, but the tanks are rolling inevitably, including you, are rolling inevitably towards Chicago, and I think nothing really can stop Weber at this point. We'll go through the plains, and the Americans just don't have an opportunity to stop and consolidate or even organize a defense. So we'll leave the somewhat exhausted third Panzer behind, but the rest of them is going to push on, and we will make a mad drive towards Chicago at this point. There's an American tank division in the north, so we'll push that back towards Detroit to secure the northern flank. We've got the 2nd Panzer Division on the move. It is a race towards Chicago at this point, and we've got other tank divisions rolling, securing the southern flank without any significant opposition. So having a quick look, that's just the Canadian submarines that we're hunting here. Without significant opposition, the tanks are making their way towards Chicago, and the last remaining American armored divisions near Detroit are being overrun, more or less, and pushed back. We have the 2nd Panzer about to reach Chicago. The completely surprised American troops along the lines here have not expected this kind of offensive, and Chicago has fallen, and German forces have been pushing towards the Union of Socialist American States' temporary capital of Chicago for a while now. Reports are now coming in of the city capture by advancing troops. Earl Russell Browder's current whereabouts are unknown, but it is believed he has fled the city with militia units, so he's gone underground. Reports indicate that military police have begun rounding up and arresting potential agitators and important syndicalist figures, and that many fires are spreading unchecked through the city's high-rise districts while German forces struggle to establish order. At this point, Chicago has fallen. American troops disorganized. They have also lost the majority of their leadership at this stage. We are, however, a little far. We've actually made it all the way to Ottawa. So Guderian is moving a little further than anticipated. Can we establish? Yeah, we'll probably establish supply lines. Yeah, we are going to establish supply lines all the way up to Chicago. Do we have any indication where? It looks like they fled to Houston. But how far are the Americans to capitulation? We'll still have to go a little further. It looks. We'll secure the area around Chicago. There's literally nobody to be found anymore. So we will take some of the. We'll ensure that we take some of the cities in the north, while waiting for. And Indianapolis is pretty much open. While waiting for the rest of the troops to follow up on Weber's mad dash here, in the following Guderian's playbook of completely bonkers operations without waiting for further instructions. Argentina has defeated Brazil. Brazil has capitulated, and with that. The South American continent is under control of the Buenos Aires-Lima axis pretty much, except for some of the northern states there. And we have found, and we're about to destroy the last remaining American troops in Yucatan. And I think we have actually encircled a fair amount of American troops here as well. So we may as well begin destroying these. And with that, we are pretty much walking through Mexico, because the Americans have nothing left to really have nothing left to hold these positions. Weber's tanks are moving at will at this point. The Americans are not able to organize a defense, and we are extending the territory. Holding the control over the territory is tenuous, at least, because we may have to start swinging south a little. But Ottawa has fallen to Guderian's forces, and that means we potentially have an opportunity here to close the gap near Toronto as well, and encircle a vast number of Canadian troops. So we'll get Guderian's tanks to rapidly work towards an envelopment of these surprised Canadian troops that are paralyzed, organizationally paralyzed north of the river line here. And we will see if we can destroy that group of Canadian defenders that have been pushed out of Ottawa, despite the fact that Guderian is very much out of supply. But we've got the 17th Schützen Division coming in, and with that, I think the Canadians have been outmaneuvered and are now going to be attacked from all sides and are going to be effectively destroyed. That is 13 Canadian divisions, 13 Canadian infantry divisions being destroyed. Weber has been chasing the 241st Centurion Division all the way into Canada, and we're now clearing up the last positions there. We've got some Russian tanks assisting with operations here, but we are pretty much running free in the north of the USAS at this point. Some defenses have been starting to organize near Springfield, so we will immediately begin attacks, despite the fact that they are numerically superior, but because they have just been shipped in, they had no time to organize, and Weber's tanks have no problems pushing them back and securing the positions around Springfield. And we will see if it becomes necessary to take the Louisville-St. Louis line as well, or if we need to make a push in the south towards Houston. Hopefully, at some point, the amount of losses that the Americans are taking are going to be sufficient for them to surrender. But that point has not been reached yet. The Browder government is insistent in its defense, although Browder himself has been going underground, and the war support is continually dropping. And I think we now need to start reorienting our strategic bombing, probably south. Let's see if we can. We'll simply send the America bombers towards the Gulf Coast. They should be in range, without problems, and begin bombing Houston. And that should allow us to cause a bit more trouble here. All right. Meanwhile, we have a line north towards Canada and into the northern states, but we don't really need to do very much to defend that. The lines are very, very stretched here, but without any significant American defenses, I think we can pretty much. Okay, Springfield is now coming under serious attack, and will need reinforcements. So I think we will divert the 4th Panzer into a counterattack against the Americans in the south. Weber's troops are now starting to run a bit out of their out of steam. They have overstretched themselves somewhat. And I think it's now is the point where we do need to begin consolidating this line that has been very, very stretched. Wait for reinforcements to come in, secure all the lines of communication. A massive push into the American north, but with potential of extending it further, but yeah, I will need to consolidate the line at this point and get all the troops to follow up, and potentially link up with Guderian here, who is busy in Canada. The Russians have managed to land in Canada now that Ottawa has fallen. So I am tempted to leave the Canadians, after that massive destruction of Canadian forces here, to leave the Canadians to their own devices and get Guderian in towards potentially for a push south towards Houston if necessary. But it's not an ideal grenades. It's doable. We could push along the. We could send Guderian south to push along the coastline, and get take Houston if that becomes necessary, to finally get hands on Browder and his goons. The Americans are running war propaganda in a desperate bid to increase the support among the flagging support among the population, but it is clear to everybody except Browder and his goons that the war is lost and the USAS will fall. It's just a question of how many more of his soldiers is he willing to sacrifice. Weber has established control of the north together with Reichspakt troops that are now moving in. Friendly troops are, the Russians are expanding their invasion north in Canada, and Guderian's tanks are beginning to arrive in the south. So once they are ready and established, we can begin the first operations. We've got some early arrivals. So Guderian's 6th Panzer is already on the move to secure the southern flank, and then we will literally drive towards Houston and clear out the last remaining positions there. Right, we've got 3 tank divisions here, and I think we'll focus on Guderian's tanks. We've got some more medals to award while we're here. But once that is all done, then we'll focus on Guderian's tanks and make another run towards Houston through the southern states, past New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and to take Houston. The Americans are close to breaking point. It is not going to take much more, I think. Once the old cities in the south have been liberated, that have been under control originally of the southern of the American Union states, then I think it's going to be all over really. Not much in terms of opposition anymore. The Americans have lost in Mexico. We're not advancing any further, not in order to just not waste any more lives on the German side, but we are sending now Guderian's tank divisions through all the way towards Baton Rouge to get the old capital of the Union States liberated first, while we can actually use some of the mechanized infantry to clear out the northern flank and move all the way up to Jackson and secure that. And hopefully once we have actually an airport under control here, we can bring a bit more in terms of Luftwaffe, because we are still operating out of Miami, which is a bit far at this point, but I think Baton Rouge has an air base, so we should be able to operate out of there. With the Panzer Grenadier divisions following behind, we can actually, or maybe we'll send these north towards Jackson, and we can divert 2 of the tank divisions. We'll bring the 7th and the 1st, and we will also send these north to secure the northern flank, and then move towards Shreveport, while the rest of Guderian's troops is still catching up. Once we have the Baton Rouge airport under control, we can send, and then we'll do a detour south towards New Orleans and secure the southern flank there. Then we can send some more of the Luftwaffe in as well to clear out the region. But the overall thrust is underway. American defenders are being pushed back, and it looks like a lot of them have a lot of them have been rushed into the area hastily, because they are very much out of organization and as such not able to defend themselves at all against the onslaught of the tanks. Compounding factor obviously being that they have no means of stopping Guderian's panzers at this point at all. All right, the northern southern group has overrun, has just overrun the enemy. We'll send the 10th Panzer forward already towards the outskirts of Houston, while we've got the 6th Panzer clearing out the southern areas. But it looks like there are no actual defenders anymore in the region. So now we can pull up the fighters, and we can potentially also bring. We should have some tactical bombers in the area. There we go. 15th Tactical Bomber Wing can be. That's probably not going to fit. Well, we'll bring probably half of them in over towards Baton Rouge, and from there on to assist with Deep South Air Zone operations. While the planes are transferring, the Schützen divisions are moving up towards Lafayette, and the large front tank operations are underway. We can send the other one over, and we're taking various airports at this point. The region is completely undefended. There are a few desperate attempts near Lafayette to stop the tanks, but in the swamps. But that's not going to happen. We've got the 6th Panzer is going to move along the coastline towards Houston. We've got 7th Panzer going to push towards Austin and then come in from the north. And we've got 1st Panzer who's going to move all the way towards Austin and then move towards Dallas if necessary. But the Americans are broken. 8th Panzer has taken a short rest to refuel and is going to already push towards Dallas in the north. Again, few desperate attempts of American motorized and mechanized divisions to try and stop the onslaught, but it looks like the 1st and the 10th Panzer are well on their way towards taking Houston, and with that the American capital. And with that, it's going to be potentially the end if we can manage to catch Browder at this point, or if he keeps hiding underground. Desperate defense of Houston. Troops have been rushed in via rail. They have no way of establishing any defensive perimeter. And the 10th Panzer Division is moving in. It has taken the American capital. And that should be, we'll see if that is the end. An encircled division has fallen back. Will secure the outskirts of Houston, pushing back any kind of attempt towards defending and expand the overall control further north, while we are waiting for the rest of the divisions to move in. Rapid rush across the southern states. American defenders along the line have not been able to stop Guderian in his tracks. And the USAS is very, very close to capitulating, which means we are still probably going to have to take Austin. And we will be taking Austin, we will be taking Dallas, and we get the 10th Panzer to just keep moving on towards San Antonio, push through the exhausted defenders. Small skirmishes without much of an opportunity to do any real damage to Guderian's tanks. We can have the 7th. Take Dallas and then destroy the defending division here. And we've got the 10th moving towards San Antonio. Final retreats, but the Americans are routed completely. There's no further opportunity to build up defensive perimeters, and I think that is the capitulation. It looks like we may have managed to capture them after all. The Americans have capitulated. The Union of Socialist American States has announced its total surrender to the German Empire. The German forces, along with a number of independent American authoritarian Democrat supporters, have forced Earl Russell Browder and his government into exile, as a new government has been established to rule the Union of Socialist American States in cooperation with the German Empire. William III has remarked that this mutual agreement will bring a new age of prosperity and cooperation to the Union of Socialist American States. Browder responded by stating that even in exile he shall continue to fight for the USAS and support all resistance effort in the homeland. So, it looks like Browder has managed to escape, probably on a ship from Texas. We don't know exactly where he is, but with the fall of the USAS, I think the war is finally over. The collapse came slowly at first, then rapidly. The nation had suffered under the devastation of the Great Depression, followed by the Black Monday crisis, torn apart by the political divide, and finally descended into a bloody, protracted civil war. In the end, the people would accept anyone as their leader, as long as they put an end to the bloodshed. From the ashes rose a new totalist state under the iron fist of Browder and his thugs. Initially, a syndicalist workers' movement, once their totalitarian true colors showed, they never managed to win the people's hearts and loyalty. Their numbers were impressive, a massive reindustrialization program, fleets to rival the Hochseeflotte, a vast air force, and an army that held, on paper, more modern equipment than even the German Wehrmacht. Yet, once the first German Marines set foot on the beaches of Staten Island, their fate was already sealed. Too many of their troops were young, ideologically blinded men who cheered under the red and white banner of totalist communism. The veterans of the Civil War, however, had, for the most part, different loyalties, and the party never managed to unite the country behind that banner. What was left of the capable military leadership had been purged, and new officers were selected by the fervor of their oath to the party, instead of their qualities on the field of battle. After defeat at sea and the shock of atomic fire, unorganized USAS troops raced from position to position, head first into storms of steel, or retreated in a panic under pressure. Despite their modern weapons, they never once managed to employ them to their potential, and thus were driven before the onslaught of the German Panzer armies. While the citizens of the Empire celebrate the end of the war in the streets and the glory of the Kaiser in Berlin, the Americans now must once again mourn their dead and pray that this time there will finally be peace. The German Empire has officially taken control of the North American states until a peaceful transition to a new government can be coordinated. Browder and his closest circle has last been reported to be seen in the jungles of Mexico. They have managed to escape from Houston via boat and been smuggled by sympathizers into underground organizations, from where on they are planning to conduct terrorist and guerrilla warfare against the occupying forces. As such, peace has come to the world at last. The wars of the world are over, at least for now, but the Reichspakt has emerged as the predominant military alliance in the world, and one that is not easily challenged. Generals like Hermann Weber and Heinz Guderian have, with their tank armies, have shown the world that the German Empire is a military force that is second to none. All that under von Kluge's expert leadership, and special forces, the Gebirgskommando under General Fuchs and the Marine-Kommando under General Halder have done the same to show that even in difficult terrain, German forces are without equal in the world. The problems for the empire obviously never stop. There will be further economic integration necessary. There will obviously be discontent in such a vast group of countries. There will always be discontent. There will always be local rebellion. There will always be attempts at taking the leadership in the Reichspakt away from Germany, given that Germany by itself is, while highly industrialized and probably the richest and most prosperous country in the world at this point, still is one small nation among many. Independence movements in the remote colonies of Middle Africa and German East Asia, potential future conflicts with the Qing Empire if they push their ambitions further in Southeast Asia, or conflict in Europe with the United States of Greater Austria and their coalition of the Donau-Adria-Bund are potential flashpoints. The Argentinians and the Buenos Aires-Lima axis have taken control of South America, and obviously rebellions and syndicalist, socialist uprisings can always happen. But all in all, for now at least, there is peace, and with the Second Weltkrieg and the following Cold War resolved, we'll hope that we'll never have to resort to using the power of nuclear weapons again. A period of peace is coming, and what the future holds, nobody will know. But this, my friends, is the end of the series. Thank you very much for sticking around. There will be a debrief session where I'm going to talk a little bit about this one, the next one, and just, how it all went. But this is it. You have made it to the end of this series. Congratulate yourself, grab a cup of tea or a mug of coffee, and celebrate with me the successful completion of the first Kaiserreich run and of the German Empire series.